Hi guys. Hello from my closet because this is the only quiet place in my house. I really liked this week's podcast. I really enjoyed being able to listen to them and do stuff around the house and whatnot. It was probably one of the most fascinating weeks of school, I guess, this week, listening to those. I had heard about the science of reading before. I didn't really fully understand the history behind reading instruction in American schools or why there was so much controversy. I just knew it existed. One thing that I think probably stood out to me the most was all of the stories. It's not about teachers not caring or doing a bad job. Most of them are doing exactly what they've been trained. And as somebody who went through an emergency certificate to become a teacher, that means that all of my knowledge on reading was dependent on that I Teach program. And I'm here to tell you that it wasn't great. Or at least then it wasn't. That was in 2016. And it made me kind of look at the whole picture of we're putting all of our trust into these prep programs because more and more teachers are getting certified through prep programs. Curriculum companies, the leaders, our professional developments, are we just sitting there for 2 hours listening to something that could have been an email, or are we really learning something? And if the people that are creating these programs or this curriculum aren't following the research, then you're just like on a spinning loop. You're not gonna see progress. It kind of made me think about when I was in Sweetwater. We got this brand new fancy curriculum. I couldn't even tell you what it was now, but it was awful. It was terrible. And I think about January, the principal said we got a new superintendent, and he said, what do you need? What do we need to help these kids learn and read? And she said, Hooked on Phonics, Saxon Phonics. And he said, do we still have that? Because if you don't know, that's kind of dated. But she said, yeah, I have all of it. We never got rid of it. We never shredded it. It's in the book room. And he said, pass it out. And they went back to Saxon Phonics because that's what worked. And our kids grew with it. But so this topic specifically, after all that, kind of made me laugh because I did reading, Reading Academy in the 21-22 school year. So I did the parts that were online. I went physically to the classes, and I remember it very vividly because my last day of class, you took the test and you were done with the academy, was the day prior to being induced with Lainey Kate. So like I was sitting on a yoga ball through this whole class. But I remember getting there and being like, that has a title? Like, what's a diphthong? Like all those things, I had no knowledge. And here I am teaching special education in resource settings, inclusion, life skills. I taught kindergarten for a while. All those areas that are the core foundation of learning to read, those ages. And I really probably needed a Reading Academy style when I was doing my emergency certification. So it did kind of make me look at it as a teacher, but then also looking at it from an assessment perspective, from diagnostician and LSSP. We talked about this in our other class last week when we were there, but Ed Schultz model kind of, is why are we giving so many tests when the evidence is right there in front of you? It's not just about the scores. You have to look at the preponderance of evidence. We have to look at the whole picture before we determine this disability being the primary cause of the struggle that the child is having. So, if the child has dyslexia, there's no test out there that's going to say, oh, she scored a 92, she has dyslexia. You have to look at the whole picture. And so it's kind of like, I wish that we were able to do that collectively. Like everybody could come to the table to determine who's building the curriculum, what we want in the curriculum, what works, what doesn't, where's the evidence. Like you almost wish you could just have a big round table talk to decide what would be best. But overall, I think my biggest takeaway is that education has got to be driven by research rather than trends. Now that we have social media, there's all these different trends and all these different ways of teaching, and not that those aren't great tools. Like you'll find a lot of things on social media by teachers who are excellent teachers, and you'll go, oh, I should do that. And it works great in your classroom. But also looking at the evidence and the why, and the why is that working? What are we doing to make it work? How are we monitoring it? How are we collecting data for it? For really helping schools. And I think as LSSPs, especially in small communities, small districts, rural districts, we as LSSPs are really going to have to help schools see and make decisions that are going to impact their learning, those students' learning, based on asking those questions. Where's the evidence? What does it tell us? Is there any evidence that this works, or is that just what the company says? And I think the podcast kind of just reminded me of our obligation for that, continuing to learn. It can get really easy to finish something and be like, that's my skill, that's what I'm best at, but not continue learning how you can grow that skill, or questioning our own practices, being willing to change our way of doing things based on evidence. That's something we say in our office all the time. Like, you have to be willing to change. It's okay. It's scary, but everything is constantly evolving. So I think that was my most valuable lesson from this week's.